Hey everybody, I wanted to give you an update on these arrests in connection with the murder of Jam Master Jay. That happened on October 30th, 2002, nearly 18 years ago. Now, I have been following this since it first happened. It was when I was first starting in my TV news career. And of course, being a lover of hip hop and part of the hip hop scene here in New York, I was very interested to see what had happened. Jam Master Jay was a beloved figure in Queens. A lot of people looked up to him. He was still in the hood there on Merrick Boulevard with his studio, which I think was on the second or third floor there in a building where he ended up being killed. And a lot of people looked up to him because of the worldwide success, because of the fame, because of what he'd achieved. And they just really loved him. So it's very troubling what I'm going to tell you, but I feel like I have to give you the facts of what is being put out by the U.S. attorney here and by the federal government so that you know what we're dealing with here and can really understand what all is involved with this case. So Jam Master Jay was murdered on October 30th, 2002, nearly 18 years ago. The case went to Queens South Homicide of the NYPD, which has had many big cases, and also they're the ones, the detective squad that solved the Chinks murder and resulted in the Chinks arrest. So those detectives worked the case as recently as a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, because I had been checking in with them regularly, anything new with Jam Master Jay, anything new with this case. And they said, Lisa, nobody's talking, but we think we have some leads on it. The only problem is the people who we believe are the suspects are facing other charges and are involved in other cases. Now, those of you familiar with the criminal justice system understand and know that when you have federal charges pending, those take precedence over state charges. That's what's going on now with the Chinks case, where Quincy Homer and the other alleged accomplice in the murder of Chinks, they're kind of in limbo because of other cases that they have that were pre-existing and pending. So in terms of the New York case, in the murder of Jam Master Jay, it stalled and it really wasn't getting anywhere for a long time because nobody was really talking. You know, same old story. Nobody was really talking. The police kept going on it, and then after a while, it went to the cold case squad of the NYPD. So the cold case squad got a hold of it. Then they brought in the FBI. Then they brought in the ATF. And then what they put together was this narcotics trafficking case, which involved the two suspects, Karl Jordan Jr. and then also Ronald Washington, who were indicted by a grand jury in this for the murder in connection with narcotics trafficking of Jam Master Jay, of Jason Mizell, which is his government name. Now, what they're saying, how they tie this all together, which is pretty interesting, and I'm going to read this to you right from the court document so that there's no mistake and so that there's no nuance to it or anything like that, because we don't like to hear with our hip-hop icons any negativity, but I'm just going to give you the facts as they appear in these public court records, which I have in my hand from the U.S. Department of Justice. Okay, these are what the court records say. So these two suspects, Karl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington, they were part of the inner circle of Jam Master Jay at the time of his death. And what the federal government is saying is that in addition to Jam Master Jay's music career, between sometime in or around or between 1996 and 2002, he was involved in transporting kilogram quantities of cocaine for retail sale in the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere. Eastern District of New York is the federal jurisdiction, which includes Brooklyn, Queens, and also parts of I'm doing this in my car. Sorry about that. I didn't want to wait till I got to another location. I'm still outside the courthouse. So what he's saying is that he was involved in drug trafficking in the Eastern District, which is here in Brooklyn, Queens, and parts of Long Island. So then he said that in or about July 2002, Mizell acquired approximately 10 kilograms of cocaine on consignment from a supplier in the Midwest. The cocaine was intended to be distributed in Maryland by Washington, who is one of the Ronald Washington, one of the suspects who was arrested in the murder, Jordan, the second suspect, and other co-conspirators. Then a dispute, and I'm reading from the federal document here. A dispute between Washington and one of the co-conspirators resulted in Mizell telling Washington that he would be cut out of the Maryland transaction. Following Washington's dispute with Mizell, basically he was, saying, you're not going to be part of this deal with these 10 kilograms of cocaine. So, following Washington's dispute with Mizell, which is Jam Master Jay, Washington and Jordan conspired to murder Jam Master Jay. That's what the feds are saying. They call him Mizell. Now the murder, they say, on Wednesday, October 30th, Mizell and several others were present at his recording studio, 24/7 studio located on Merrick Boulevard in Queens. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Washington and Jordan, armed with firearms, entered the studio. Each brandished a firearm. Each had a gun. Washington pointed his gun at one of the individuals located inside the studio, told that person to lie on the floor. That part of the story we heard before, and I reported earlier on, as soon as we found out some of the details of the case in the very beginning. Jordan approached Mizell, pointed his gun at him, and fired 2 shots at close range. One of those shots struck Jam Master Jay in the head, which killed him. The second shot struck another individual in his leg. So that's what the federal government is saying. They're saying that's why these murder charges that they're facing are murder charges in connection with cocaine with drug trafficking, narcotics trafficking, as their language calls it. So what this means is these 2 suspects, who are now going to be arraigned via teleconferencing, because due to COVID-19, the federal court system, the federal court system is closed. They're going to be arraigned via teleconferencing. If they are found guilty, what they're looking at is a federal mandatory minimum of 20 years behind bars, maximum of life behind bars, with the option of the death penalty. So it's way too early in the case for the prosecutors to say whether or not they're going to look for the death penalty, but that is on the table and that is a possibility. So they could get the death penalty for the murder of Jam Master Jay. Now, all of these details, I have to say that I was at the press conference. I'm right outside the Eastern District right now, Cameron Plaza in Brooklyn. I have to say that the police were very respectful of him. I have to say that the feds were very respectful as they spoke about Jam Master Jay. There's no doubt whatsoever, whatever he was doing to make ends meet, or to, provide some income for himself and his loved ones, whatever else was going on, there is absolutely no doubt and no question he is the victim here, period. He is the one who was shot and killed. The chief of detectives for NYPD, Rodney Harrison, said, who's from Queens, he said, as a lifelong, Run DMC fan, he goes, I was happy to see some closure to this. The federal prosecutor, who's acting assistant U.S. attorney, said that he was happy that his friends and loved ones and those who love him could have some kind of closure to this case. Of course, it still has to be tried. It still has to go to a trial, or else they'll take some kind of plea. We don't know what's going to happen yet, especially with this whole court situation being so closed because of the coronavirus. But for the family, for his wife, for his children, for his loved ones, there's some kind of closure for them with this case now that these 2 people. But the thing that's so scary to me is that these are 2 guys that were in his inner circle. One of them, according to what the prosecutors told us, one of them was actually basically homeless and sleeping on his couch in the studio. So that's a really sad thing, that these were part of his inner circle and that this is what happened. But as we all know, what happens when there's certain activities and people don't feel they're getting their proper share or proper cut or whatever, tragedy is possible. But my condolences go out to Reverend Run, to DMC, to Lydia, to all of the family members of Jam Master Jay. And I usually don't read off these official documents, but I wanted to do it this time because I hold them in such tremendous respect for what they've done for hip hop and what they've done for the culture. And I wanted to give it to you really straight. So that's what the story is here outside the federal courthouse and the U.S. Attorney's office in downtown Brooklyn. So rest in peace, Jam Master Jay, and hopefully justice will be done. Okay.